Agenda item 11, planning application 2539. This isn't right. 397 something.
No.
Is it?
No.
Oh, well, that's, yeah. 25, is that
397
says that?
something.
Eileen.
It's 2397.
2397. That's it.
2397.
2397. Major full. And 252398 listed building consent. The Royal Beacon, the Beacon Exmouth, pages 188 to 262. The recommendation is to approve with conditions. Senior Planning Officer Jill Himsworth to present the report. Please, Jill.
Thank you very much, Chair. Dear, I'm having mouse trouble. There we go. Apologies for that. So this application is before the Planning Committee owing to the officer recommendation of approval being contrary to comments received from the Town Council. So this is the application site here on the end of the Beacon. So the application seeks approval for the change of use and conversion of the building to provide 19 apartments and 2 new build houses to the rear of the site. The building is at the southeastern end of the Beacon, which is an elevated position close to Exmouth seafront. You can see there's the beach there, and the Beacon is along here, which sits in a very elevated position in relation to the beach. There are 23 properties within the terrace that forms the Beacon, nearly all of which are Grade 2 listed, as is the application property. The building was built as a high-status house when Exmouth became a fashionable seaside resort in the 18th and 19th centuries. So the Royal Beacon Hotel currently occupies number 22 and number 23, the Beacon. Originally, the hotel only occupied number 23, and at some point, the hotel has also taken in number 22 as well. So this is number 23 on the right-hand side of the image. You can see it's 3 stories with an attic and a basement. It has bracketed eaves. The canted bay windows are a later addition, as are the dormer windows. And the windows are arranged symmetrically around the front door with its classical porch. Number 22 also has canted bay windows and a moulded cornice over the doorway. So the building is 3 stories facing Louisa Terrace along this bit of the plan. The building currently has parking for 6 spaces within the rear courtyard of the building in here. The building is inside the Exmouth Conservation Area and also is within a principal holiday accommodation area as defined by the local plan. So the proposal involves the demolition of the modern rear block and the replacement of this block with 2 new build houses. And the rest of the building would be reconfigured to provide 19 apartments across the basement, ground, 1st, 2nd and 3rd floors of the existing building. So some of the more modern outbuildings at the rear of the hotel would be removed to create more space to provide parking to the building. So in terms of the principle of development, policy E17 of the local plan states that within the principal holiday accommodation areas, as identified on the proposals map, the change of use or redevelopment of hotels and other forms of holiday accommodation to non-tourism accommodation uses will not be permitted unless there is no physical or economic potential for continued tourist use, and or refurbishment or redevelopment for holiday accommodation purposes is not financially viable, and or the development proposals would result in environmental and or economic benefits to the area that would outweigh the loss of tourist accommodation. So in terms of complying with this policy, the applicant has marketed the hotel for at least 12 months. It's been marketed for more like 24 months. and no interest has been received in the hotel in that time. East Devon District Council have appointed an independent consultant to undertake an independent review of the submitted viability information that agreed with the conclusion that the hotel was not financially viable. The hotel has been loss-making for several years due to significant pressures in terms of wage increases, national insurance changes, energy and utility costs, and inflation in supplies and services. It's noted in the viability appraisal that the current owner is noted as a competent and experienced hotel operator, and even with economies of scale and their experience, they have not been able to make the hotel profitable. Other options were looked at, including an apart hotel scheme to look at retaining some of the tourism use on the site. But this also suffers from the same challenges as the hotel use in terms of cost pressures for wages and services. And this also is deemed to be not viable. As such, there's no objection to East Devon District Council's economic development team in terms of the change of use, and the policy criteria of policy E17 criteria have been met. Also, in terms of the application, the lack of a 5-year housing land supply means that the presumption in favour of sustainability applies, whereby approval should be granted unless the harms of the proposal outweigh the benefits. So in terms of the building's listed status, the local authority must pay special regard to the desirability of preserving the building and its setting and any features of special architectural or historic interest it possesses. And an applicant must be able to justify their proposals. The buildings mentioned in the architectural historian's Pevsner's guides in terms of the terrace as a sea view terrace, the earliest houses built from 1792 onwards, not a unified group, just a pleasant mixture of red brick and stucco, late Georgian pedimented door cases, porches with sturdy Ionic columns. Externally, the building retains much of its original detailing and has architectural significance through its elegant frontage and the contribution this makes to the architectural and historical character of the beacon. The building has historic significance as a high-status residence and associated value with Exmouth's evolution as a fashionable seaside resort. So going further around the building, this is Louisa Terrace to the east of the street. So you can see there, this is one of the mid-19th century extensions, the ballroom's in here. And then this part here is a later 1985 edition, which is very utilitarian in its character. That's the rear of the building, facing Beacon Place. So that's a flat roof structure, obviously, which contains further hotel accommodation. So you can see there's a definite opportunity there for a replacement building to make a positive contribution to the conservation area. The application's been accompanied by a thorough heritage statement. There's the phasing plans here, which shows the different phases of the buildings. So the pink is the earliest section of the building, which dates from the late 18th century. Then the purple is the parts of the building that were shown on the first edition Ordnance Survey map. So from the late 18th century up until the late 19th century. And then the green sections are the post-1950s, so the modern block at the rear on the previous slide. So that's the existing basement. And in terms of the proposal, so there are two apartments proposed in the basement. So you can see from the photographs, the basement was raised up. It's not completely sunk, so there's these large windows at the front, so these basements will be served by a reasonable amount of daylight. So So a couple of conditions are proposed in terms of works within the basement. Here's the existing ground floor plan. There's few features within the actual ground floor other than a few cornices within the reception and a fireplace to the right-hand bar area. And the layout has been relatively amended within the ground floor already. There's the demolition plan. I don't know if you can quite see those lines on the slide, but that shows the extent of the demolition proposed at ground floor. So you can see a lot of these outbuildings, which contain stairs and outbuilding things, will be removed. This will help create additional space within the rear courtyard. So in terms of the proposed ground floor plan, you can see there's 4 apartments at ground floor level. And then we've got 2 new build mews houses at the rear of the site, which is set back from the street rather than being right up to the back of the road as with the current scheme, to allow for some defensible space and also allow a small pocket for some soft landscaping. So within the rear courtyard, 19 parking spaces are proposed, and then the mews houses would have parking provided within their garages, and a condition would be imposed regarding the final details of the proposed landscaping scheme. There's the existing first floor plan, and the proposed first floor plan indicates 6 apartments and 2 houses to the rear of the site. The scheme as originally submitted, there were some significant concerns regarding the ballroom, which was proposed as being split along its middle to form 2 apartments. And the Conservation Officer raised concerns that this would undermine the significance of this space. Therefore, following these comments, the applicant has revised this into a single apartment with new bedrooms on a mezzanine to preserve the significance of the space. In terms of the mews houses, again, concerns were raised regarding the extent of glazing and balconies on these elevations, but these have been revised. So the balcony on the corner here looks down the street rather than across the street to the houses opposite on Beacon Place. And again, the other balconies are set within and are now at the rear of the site as well. Going back to the ballroom, this is the ballroom here. You can see it contains the original detailing, such as dentil cornices, and there's quite attractive window surrounds. So all of this would be retained, and a new mezzanine would be put into this end of the room with bedrooms above, but it would be retained as one apartment with the access into the apartment via the original ballroom doors. That's the existing 2nd and 3rd floor, so minor alterations are proposed to the layouts at the upper stories of the building, and these have already been relatively altered in its conversion to a hotel over the years. So here's the 2nd floor plan with 3 more apartments up here and the 2 new build mews houses. And the proposed 3rd floor plan. All of the apartments proposed are above the national minimum space standards, with the exception of 1 apartment, which is at 48 square metres as opposed to 50 square metres, which is seen as reasonable given that the East Devon local plan doesn't specifically require adherence with the nationally described minimum space standards, and given that the applicant is working within the constraints of an existing listed building where to comply with the standard would mean moving walls around, which would cause harm to the building. And here is the proposed roof plan. So you can see here there's a small plant area over the flat roof to the 1st floor area, which would house a number of air source heat pumps. So heating for the apartments of the houses would be via air source heat pump, and a number of conditions are proposed in respect of these to control the noise level of the heat pumps, and also requiring further detail of the screening to protect the character of the area. And in terms of the elevations, that's the existing street elevation. So only very minor changes are proposed to the principal elevations of the hotel, so facing the Beacon and facing Louisa Terrace. The main changes are to the mews houses to the rear of the site. In terms of the historic portion of the building, a condition would be proposed requiring a condition survey to ensure that things like roof and rainwater goods were repaired, repair of windows and doors and render repairs. And in terms of the mews houses, these are proposed with quite a contemporary aesthetic, with vertically proportioned windows and doors, crisply detailed leadwork dormers with slate roofs, and white render and brickwork panels which reflects the rear of the properties along the beacon, and the articulation would be much greater than the building that's currently there. A condition would be proposed regarding the detailing of the dwellings to ensure that the quality reflects the standards required of the conservation area. And you can see there that the existing access to the undercroft access to the car park to the rear would be retained, but this would be closed off with a door to prevent anybody accessing that who shouldn't be in there. That's the existing car park elevations. So you can see there some of these later additions that will be removed, and the proposed car park elevations. So again, conditions will be proposed regarding materials, details, and details of new and any replacement windows. The works could affect both the historic building fabric and potential archaeological deposits. Therefore, a condition is proposed regarding archaeological and historic building recording. As I said earlier, there were concerns raised both by officers and by third parties regarding the potential for overlooking and the loss of privacy for the existing houses on Beacon Place. As originally submitted, there were significant areas of glazing and balconies within this elevation overlooking these existing houses. And the applicant has worked with the local authority to reduce the size of these glazing while still retaining a scheme that has interest and articulation in the elevations. So the glazing is probably less than the current arrangement facing onto Beacon Place. The building has a similar eaves height to the existing eaves height of the building. An additional stories being added, but the roof is set back behind the eaves. Therefore, it's not considered that the increase in height would reduce daylight or sunlight to the houses opposite. In terms of the existing buildings at the rear of the beacon, the height of the proposed mews houses is not considered to be out of context, and the mixture of materials is also in keeping with what's there. You can see the mixture on the back of the beacon buildings here. There's plenty of examples of brickwork and render and a mixture of both. So the proposal is in keeping with the character of the conservation area. The works within the existing courtyard allow space for parking. There is a section of the building here which is proposed for removal, which is one of the mid-19th century portions of the building, which the conservation officer has noted would lead to less than substantial harm. In terms of the benefits of this proposal, you can see there's an early historic bow window here, which has been subsumed by the later alterations, and it would allow this bow window to become more visible, and it would also allow the earlier parts of the building to function as apartments. However, the NPPF requires that great weight be given to an asset's conservation. Given that it's considered that the use of the building of the hotel has been shown not to be viable, and overall the proposal would retain the architectural and historic significance of the building. The harm caused by the loss of this small section is considered to be outweighed by the public benefits of improving the conservation area and putting the overall building into a viable use consistent with its conservation. In terms of the parking spaces, the hotel currently has 6 spaces serving a 52-bedroom hotel. So obviously that's a significant shortfall, and therefore customers either park on the street or arrive by public transport. The proposal would provide 1 space each per dwelling, which is slightly lower than the standards required by TC9 of the local plan policy, but a significant improvement on the current arrangement. And 24 bicycle parking spaces are provided within the scheme, plus additional visitors cycling spaces. In terms of drainage, all of the surface water from the scheme at the moment goes into the public sewers, and the proposal would allow for improvements in terms of attenuation with the car park to slow down water runoff from the site, and the detailed drainage scheme would be required by condition. It's also considered not practical to provide affordable housing within the listed building, therefore affordable housing contributions would be sought in lieu of on-site provision, which would be secured by a Section 106 agreement. So in terms of the, in favour of the proposal would provide a viable use for the heritage asset. It would retain the architectural and historic significance of the building and provide an enhancement to the conservation area. The proposal would contribute to the housing supply. The parking numbers would be increased over the existing arrangement. Surface water would be attenuated. Affordable housing contributions can be secured, and ecological enhancements would be realised through the development. And in terms of the points against the development, there is a certain amount of less than substantial harm owing to the removal of a portion of mid-19th century section to the rear of the hotel, and the proposal would lead to the loss of tourism use within the principal holiday accommodation area. So overall, the recommendation is one of approval, subject to a Section 106 obligation to secure off-site contribution towards affordable housing. So in terms of the planning approval, a number of conditions are proposed in terms of a waste audit statement, historic building recording and archaeological work, a construction and environment management plan, detailed drainage design, a water efficiency scheme, details and materials of the muse houses, a landscaping scheme, external lighting, details of external plant, details regarding noise of plant, compliance with the biodiversity assessment report, bicycle storage being in place prior to occupation, and full compliance with the details approved under the associated listed building consent application. And in terms of the conditions proposed on the listed building consent approval, these require that no demolition works are carried out until a contract for full implementation of the development is in place, ensuring safety and stability of the building, a schedule of repairs, details of structural works, details and specification of any roofing works, window works, internal joinery, basement crack repairs, details of the ballroom mezzanine, details of internal joinery and visible electrical fittings, and making good and retention of existing joinery and features. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jill. Now we have an objector, Anne Caloran. Anne, could you go up to the lectern, please? And it's the button on your right. Yeah, you have 3 minutes.
Oh, thank you. I feel, like many other objectors to this planning application, that this is a gross overdevelopment of the site. It is another example of a planning application of too many units that compromises design quality and size. A further indication is the building of 2 3-storey houses at the bottom of the site. The Royal Beacon is a listed building, and this increases concern about the Muse-type new builds at the back of the site. The planning application states, the new build element is supposed to represent an enhancement to the character and appearance of the site and the wider conservation area. I really fail to see how 2 3-storey new builds with integral garages enhances the character or appearance of the site when it will be opposite a row of cottages that were built in the late 1800s. Another example of overdevelopment, and I feel scrapping the proposal to build the new style houses could create more space for parking. Councillors will be very aware of the parking problems in the area. The allocated parking spaces is grossly inadequate for the number of apartments, particularly with the potential for the residents of these flats to have more than one car. This will put immense pressure on the already existing limited on-street parking and will have a negative effect on the overall amenity for the current residents who live in the area. The access to these apartments is in the service lane, which is actually, it's Louisa Terrace, isn't it? It's, the concern is with large modern vehicles, we'll need more space to access the site, which in turn could jeopardise the existing on-road parking spaces. Beacon Place is a narrow road, has double yellow lines on the approach, has very limited parking of 5 spaces opposite the back of the Royal Beacon. There's a school, church adjacent to the road, many taxis using this busy road and traffic is constant. There are huge safety concerns with access from Louisa Terrace Service Road and from Louisa Place due to poor visibility from oncoming traffic. The high wall at the back of the Beacon Hill house impedes vision with poor sight, and this creates challenges to safely drive in this area. The proposal to build 2 to 3 storey houses with integral garages at the back of this site brings complications and risks. The access to these garages would be very tight, would necessitate the drivers to reverse into an area that has limited visibility, has parking on the curb adjacent to the site, and it is a narrow, busy road. There is a potential risk of collision and serious harm to road users, and it's grounds for concern. Is that okay?
Thank you. Now we have Exmouth Town Councillor, Mayor of Exmouth, Councillor Graham Deasy, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've been asked by the Town Council to urge you to refuse this application. We made a written objection to this, as you are aware. We obviously recognise that the Royal Beacon Hotel requires significant investment. We also welcome the restoration of this important Grade 2 listed building, and we do acknowledge the public benefit that that will bring. However, this application comes at a considerable cost. It would permanently remove one of Exmouth's long-established hotels from our town. Once those hotel rooms become private apartments, they are lost to tourism forever. That permanent loss matters. Visitor accommodation is a vital part of Exmouth's economy, and every reduction weakens the town's ability to support visitors, local businesses, and future tourism. The benefits of restoring the building must therefore be weighed against the irreversible loss of hotel accommodation and the wider impacts of this proposal. And by that I refer really to the mass and the density of the proposal. In addition, there are significant concerns amongst councillors about car parking issues. Now, I don't wish to repeat what the previous speaker said, and in fact she covered a lot of the ground that I have said here, but I would like to certainly support what Mrs. Killoran said. And there are concerns then about the number of car parking spaces allocated, the access to the car parks, particularly the size of modern vehicles, the fact that modern households often own more than one vehicle. There are visitors, carers, contractors, delivery drivers who also need somewhere to park. And that, again, sorry to repeat, but Mrs. Killoran mentioned about anybody familiar with this part of Exmouth knows that the surrounding streets are narrow, they're under intense pressure already, that the Beacon Close, Louisa Terrace are narrow roads where parking is already at capacity. and residents and businesses and visitors compete daily for the limited spaces available. To say you're increasing car parking spaces against what was there previously, I think is something I can't really agree with as an argument to make in favour of this project. The type of use of vehicle is totally different. 6 car parking spaces for visitors is one thing, but you have 19 flats here, where it's probably, let's say even if they have 1 car each, I think there's insufficient car parking spaces, and those cars would be likely to be used far more on a much more daily basis with the number of journeys taking place each day. We are also very concerned about things like traffic flow and traffic movement and the potential danger to that. I will stop there, Chair, because as I say, Mrs. Cloran, in fact, covered an awful lot of what I was going to say. So thank you very much, committee.
Dead on time. Thank you. Right, questions, members? Ollie?
Yeah, could I just ask Jill to go back to the slide? I think it's page 88 in the pack of slides. To just explain the layout and the appearance on Beacon Place of the Mews houses, because yeah, it looks like a bit of a blank wall there at the moment, and I could do with a bit more detail there on what those will actually look like facing onto Beacon Place.
So, so the overall massing, the height is similar to what's there.
Do you want to put the mic on, Jill?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. So the overall, the height of the building is similar to what you've got there. And then obviously you've got the kind of render banding. So I mean it's kind of arranged in vertical bays. You've got the vertical emphasis with kind of the render piers coming down between the garage doors at the ground floor, which then carry on up to the glazed and the brickwork panels at first floor level. So you've kind of got that interest of the different planes of materials going on. You've got the render, you've got the brickwork, you've got the glazing. So you've got a bit of detail there. And then also you've got the parapet, and then beyond that you've got the slate roof, and then you've got these dormer windows in lead. So they're quite crisp, quite thin, contemporary looking dormer windows at the roof level. And then obviously you've got the front doors, and then you've got these areas of planting as well, which is designed to set back from the street to create a bit of space so that people aren't stepping right from the street onto their so they're not stepping right from their front doors onto the street. They've got a bit of dispensable space beforehand, and you've got the soft landscaping to soften that further. So so yeah, it's quite, I suppose it's more, it's quite a crisp look. But in terms of the overall proportions and the materials, I think it reflects quite well what's there in a contemporary way.
Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, it would be helpful, I think, if when these plans are submitted, we had a bit more detail and a bit more colour on them to kind of separate things out.
CGI?
It's
Computer generated image.
Yeah, well, even just a better drawing. You know, we're sometimes asked to decide applications on really quite sketchy drawings. I can see it's been done by a professional architect, but I feel as though we could have had a bit more detail in there that would have given us a bit more of an indication what it would actually look like. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Barlow?
Thank you. I just wonder, who decides whether the hotel at 2.5 million was a realistic price?
So, so the applicant submitted their marketing statement, which gave all the details of how the price has been arrived at. As a local authority, we then appointed an independent consultant to review things like the price that had been marketed for, just to check that they agree with their viability assessment. So the building has been marketed for over 2 years. It's been reduced significantly since it was first put on the market, and even at the reduced price, which is £500,000 below the original asking price, there have still been no offers for the building.
Councillor Levine.
Thank you, Chair. There are going to be 19 flats, and from what I can see, almost all of them are going to be undersized. Why 19? Is it simply because they're fitting in without removing any internal walls? And would it not be possible to reduce the number of flats and make them slightly bigger?
Sorry, did you say that all but one of them are going to be undersized?
I thought that almost all of them are undersized.
No, I said only one is undersized, and it's only undersized by 2 square meters.
But when I listen to the complaints about overdevelopment, it's not, it's working now. I was just wondering if the number of people that are going to occupy the apartments going to be larger or smaller than the number of guests the hotel used to have. Is it not possible to reduce the number of apartments?
So, well, we've assessed the scheme as submitted. So it has a combination of 1, 2 and 3 bedroom apartments. There's 5 one-bedrooms, 20 two-bedroom apartments. Sorry, I've got that wrong. 5 one-bedroom apartments, 10 two-bedroom apartments, and 4 three-bedroom apartments. Obviously, if they were to reduce the number of apartments, then you would be looking at larger scale apartments, apartments with more bedrooms. So the kind of overall quantum of development would be the same. I mean, in terms of our local plan, I was under the impression that there was a preference for smaller dwellings.
Presumably they'd be more sellable if there are smaller apartments.
Thank you very much, Chair. So in the marketing study that was done to show the non-viability, was that for the sale of the building only, or was it for the sale of the business and the building?
It was for the sale of the business and the building. So it wasn't, so the price wasn't based on the, no, it wasn't based on the value of the business in terms of the money it makes, because obviously it hasn't made any for the last several years. It was based on the area of the building.
Moving to debate then. Councillor Davey.
Yeah, in terms of loss of holiday accommodation, yeah, Exmouth has already lost a lot of visitor accommodation. There used to be loads of B&Bs, you know, Eileen, you live along there, along Victoria Road and St Andrews Road. Most of those have gone. There are 1 or 2 left. And part of the reason was the opening of Premier Inn on the seafront. And these large kind of old style luxury hotels, they've already been losing out to the budget hotel market, Airbnb, a change in the kind of accommodation that people want. So I don't think the loss of the holiday accommodation is particularly significant. It was already there. The parking issues, it seems to me that 19 spaces is a big improvement on 6, given that when the hotel was in use, with, I don't know how many bedrooms, I was looking through to see if it ever said. Did it? I don't. 52. It was originally 52. So that's a lot more. I haven't worked it out, but I suspect that's more than the 19 apartments would provide. So there were already parking issues up there, and that must have added to it. And certainly, I have spoken in the past, and I did ask Damien's advice on whether I needed to declare this as an interest. But the current owner did contact me and express some frustration about the parking issues, and wanted to know if he could buy spaces or lease spaces from East Devon in the car parks, in our car parks, which I had to advise he contacted the parking department and found out, but I don't think anything ever came from that. And he also wanted space on street parking, which I had to tell him was Devon County Council. And he did say at the time it was loss making, and he was struggling to make any way of making it pay. But obviously this has now come in, and that's what he's decided to do with it. And so I don't see an issue. I was a bit concerned about the Mews houses on Beacon Place, but I don't see traffic issues there. I don't think there's any objections from highways, so I'm inclined to go with approval. It doesn't seem to me it's overdevelopment. I'm a bit sad about the loss of an attractive interior to the hotel, and I'm pleased that officers have managed to secure the continuation of the features of the existing ballroom, which when I saw the photo there, I could almost smell it. I've been in that ballroom many times. I know it well, but I'm a bit sad about that. But times change, so I'm inclined to go with the officer recommendation and approve. But I'll wait until I see what others have to say.
Anybody else? Yes? Who?
Ian.
Oh, Councillor Barlow.
Yes, I'm surprised that Councillor Davies not worried about the loss of hotels in Exmouth. I mean, certainly in Sidmouth it's a big part. Obviously, this is Exmouth. I know that Exmouth has just gone for coach-friendly status. There are very few hotels in Exmouth that will take a 42-seater coach. This is one of them. I'm sure there are one or two, but if you're looking to increase this sort of thing, and again, with green tourism, etc., where you're supposed to be encouraging them in, this sort of thing. However, that being said, I do agree with him that I don't think this is overdevelopment. I think the bit at the back, while it may not be ideal to be the same as the houses opposite, is a vast improvement on what is there already. 19 parking spaces, no, it's not enough, but that's as many as you're going to get in there. And as you say, technically, if everyone was taken, you'd need 52 car parking plus all the staff and all the rest of it. So, yeah, it's as it is. I will support if that was a proposal. But again, I would just warn you, like I did on the thing with the leisure. Exmouth doesn't seem to care. Lose tennis courts, lose hotel rooms. Once they're gone, you don't get them back, and you can't get it back again. And I disagree with, I think anything like this, agricultural ties or the ties on tourism, the hotel should go to a auction. There is always a market for everything. This comes down to someone wants to save the bacon, they've bought too much or spent too much, been there too long, and haven't run it in a way that it makes a profit. So therefore, they're trying to get out and make the most money possible. Nothing wrong with that. That's business, I suppose. But it's not necessarily good for the town long term. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak? Right then, proposal? Sorry?
I'll come back.
Yeah.
just to say, you know, the accommodation, it's a bit like the tennis courts. It's redundant. It's not making money. So we're not losing something that isn't being used enough already. And as I say, you know, we have gained hotels in Exmouth, at least one. And the Imperial on the seafront has suffered from similar issues. Devoncourt has had similar issues. All these large hotels, they're all struggling. Sell it at auction, great idea, Ian, but it's going to be bought by a developer who will immediately, you know, shove in 22 flats. So, you know, I think we'll take what we're given.
Yeah, I find it very sad to see the demise of this hotel. It's had a bit of a history over the years, but it's as Councillor Davies says, and holiday trends, people are changing. They're changing where they go somewhere now to put their heads, and that's why Airbnbs are doing so well. At one time, you used to go to a hotel, and it was the hotel that was the focal point of the holiday. You know, dress for dinner and all that sort of thing. But afraid times have changed. So, do we have a proposal, please? Ollie's proposing. Seconder? Councillor Barlow seconded. Can we take a vote, please? 1, 2,
Is this
3,
in favour?
4, 5 in favour. Anyone against? Any abstentions?
1.
Well, yeah, of course you couldn't speak, yeah. Okay, so that is carried. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, Colin couldn't vote because he didn't listen.
No, that's right, he was late arriving. Not very late arriving. Right. Planning application.
Colin couldn't vote,
No, he couldn't vote. He got here after it started.
so we got 7. Oh,
No, we've got 5 plus 1, which is 6.
yeah, but I
and
haven't.
we've got
I didn't vote.
And you didn't, so you abstained as well, so 2 abstentions.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that, now it adds up. 7.
Right. Agenda item 13, planning application 250717, variation, Longview House, Ottery St Mary, pages 263 to 275. Mr. Barrett to present, Senior Planning Officer. Thanks, Jill.
We thought it was the Strand next, but it's not.
Okay.
I think the order's changed, I don't know.
The Strand didn't have any speakers, so it got bumped down the list.
Ah, okay. That's fine.
Yeah, it all depends on the number of speakers.
Right. Ready, Nigel?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. This is an application for the relaxation of an agricultural tie that applies to a property on the lower reaches of Chinway Hill to the east of Ottery St Mary. The property forms part of a holding of between 21 and 22 acres which is shown edged in red on the image before you. The dwelling, I am highlighting here, consists of a 4-bedroom property with an attached double garage with 1-bed annex accommodation above. As you will see, the holding itself principally consists of 3 fields, one with a menage, which I'm highlighting now, and some agricultural buildings in the form of a machinery cum equipment store, fodder store and wash bays, a separate lean-to and 2 stable blocks. The site, the entirety of the land holding is within the designated East Devon National Landscape. As I've already said, the proposal involves the removal of the agricultural occupancy restriction, which was attached to the planning permission for the dwelling when granted planning permission back in the year 2000. This would enable unrestricted occupation of the dwelling. Policy H5 of the adopted local plan sets out the main criteria that are material for the consideration of this proposal. The first of these is that it should be demonstrated that there is no longer a long-term functional requirement for the dwelling to house a rural worker. The second is that there should be satisfactory evidence of marketing of the property with the agricultural tie at a realistic valuation for a minimum of 18 months. Where these conditions are met, and there is a demonstrable housing need for affordable housing in the locality, as evidenced by a housing needs survey, Policy H5 goes on to consider that the occupancy condition may be modified to limit the occupancy of the dwelling accordingly, i.e., so that it, rather than being a purely open market dwelling, it becomes an affordable dwelling. So those are the main Policy H5 criteria. So to look at these, to go through these, looking at the lack of an essential functional need first off, I've distilled the main arguments in favour of the proposal that have been made by the applicant into a series of points that are set out in the report, but I will just do a brief resume of the main points, the main points of argument. The first of which is that based on the limited land area, it's argued that the unit would be unable to sustain sufficient numbers of head of livestock to enable a viable agricultural business to continue to be operated. It is also for the same reason that the holding is considered not capable of facilitating enough provision of winter forage for livestock without the corollary of reducing numbers of livestock, therefore, in the applicant's view, further reducing the viability of the holding. There is a claimed need for significant investment to bring existing livestock equipment and buildings up to date to enable any potential alternative that could involve more intensive poultry rearing, or horticulture. Such infrastructure would obviously require planning permission and could potentially involve tying up the land for biodiversity net gain requirements, thereby further reducing the extent of the land holding. A standard man-day calculation based on the livestock numbers that it is claimed the holding could support illustrate that, again, that there does not exist a functional need for a worker to be present both day and night, which is a fundamental requirement of an agricultural occupancy restriction, to properly manage the unit. As I've already touched upon, the size of the holding and other infrastructure costs are considered to preclude other diversified, possibly less traditional farming activities, such as the involvement of rare breeds, from being viable or being able to demonstrate the existence of an essential functional need for a full-time worker, or the provision of an income at a sufficient level to be able to sustain one. In this regard, the application has also supplied data setting out average earnings for agricultural workers based on figures from a couple of years ago that seek to demonstrate that the dwelling and holding would likely be out of reach for the majority of agricultural workers based on standard mortgage multipliers. So those are the main points that have been advanced to seek to demonstrate the lack of an essential functional need for the dwelling. In terms of market interest, the marketing effort that has been pursued has extended beyond a two-year period, and although it has attracted a small number of viewings, there have been no offers received. And the cited main reason for the lack of further interest is based again on the limited size of the land holding itself. The holding has been marketed with invitations of 1.2 million as a valuation for the entirety of the unit, which includes the dwelling, buildings, and the land, clearly. And in support of the valuation, there has been a separate valuation report supplied with the application that draws on valuations placed on comparable properties and holdings elsewhere within the Southwest region, which again are summarised in the report. This valuation report also draws upon what's described as a comparable analysis that demonstrates the more detailed adjustments for the comparable properties that have also been marketed within the last few years, to which the comparison is drawn with this particular case. Going on to the third of the main policy H5 criteria, vis-à-vis the potential fallback, if you like, for restricting the property for affordable housing purposes. There has been no demonstrated need for affordable housing, principally owing to the absence of any local needs survey for the parish as a whole, having been carried out since 2011. Now, having looked into this with our housing enabling officer, those surveys, which were both published within a couple of months of each other 15 years ago, were specifically focused upon the housing needs for Tipton St John and West Hill. There has been no subsequent housing needs survey for Ottery Town or any other part of Ottery Parish, so far as I am advised. As already touched upon, in any event, it's considered that the value of the property as such would be out of reach as a potential affordable unit to persons in need of such housing. The corollary is, of course, if it were, they would have access to general market housing if they were in a position to afford the property, contrary to the restrictions. So it could not therefore function as an affordable unit, as an affordable dwelling. There has been a query as to whether there might be an opportunity to secure a financial contribution in lieu of direct affordable housing provision. However, first off, this would be contrary to the relevant guidance in the National Planning Policy Framework that states that affordable housing contributions should not be sought for non-major residential developments. And although local authorities are facilitated some flexibility to reduce the thresholds of 10 units or more for major development in designated rural areas, this council's threshold is set at 5 units, for which clearly a single dwelling would fall well below this threshold. There would therefore be no specific policy support for a contribution request. And this is, in the view of officers, weakened still further by our current 5-year housing land supply position. That means that relevant housing policies, such as this part of policy H5, would be likely to carry less weight. So, having regard to this last point, these are considered to represent significant material considerations that outweigh this component of policy H5. So, taking all the factors in the wider planning balance, officers are of the view that a lack of an essential functional need has been adequately demonstrated, and that there is and continues to be no market interest in the holding, such that policy H5 might otherwise be considered to be contravened. And it is with these factors in mind that the officer position is one that the proposal can be supported. And it is on that basis that the approval recommendation set out before you in the report is put to members. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, Tim Whips, the agent, please. You have 3 minutes, Mr. Whips.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks to remove the agricultural tie condition attached to Longview House. The tie is from a 2000 planning permission which enabled the dwelling to be constructed. The removal of agricultural ties is permitted through policy H5 of the current East Devon local plan, subject to the demonstration that there have been significant changes in circumstances such that the tie is no longer needed. This is condensed to 2 points: whether there is a functional need and whether the dwelling has been marketed to demonstrate that there is no interest in anyone taking over the farm. In regards to the functional need, the dwelling was approved to support an emerging farm business following the sale of the original Ware farm in the 1980s. Although sold under a previous owner, the amount of land associated with the farm has reduced from a peak of 255 acres to the current circa 20 acres. An agricultural appraisal has been submitted with the application. This appraisal was completed by an independent surveyor who is a member of the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors and a fellow of the Central Association of Agricultural Valuers. The appraisal demonstrates that there is insufficient land to support a full-time worker. Based on the land available, the most intensive use of the land would be to keep 120 sheep. However, this would amount to just over 1 standard man days a week and would not be viable financially. As such, the amount of land demonstrates that there has been a significant change in circumstances to conclude that there is no longer a functional need for the agricultural tie to remain. Turning to the marketing of the dwelling, it has been placed on the market by Exeter-based agent Francis Louis for a period exceeding 3 years. The property is shown on their website and can still be found today. A letter from the estate agents confirmed there have been 4 viewings, but no offers were received. The feedback indicated that the agricultural tie and limited size of the holding restricted the appeal of their property. The council questioned the price at which the property has been advertised. To verify that the price was reflective of its value with the tie, the applicant commissioned a report from a qualified valuer. The valuer is entirely independent from the applicant and is a chartered surveyor through the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. The valuer considered the property to have a value of 1.2 million with the tie. This is the same price that the dwelling has been marketed and demonstrates the marketing price has been realistic and reflective of the tie. Although the council requested that this is verified by a secondary external consultant, the applicant considers that the valuer is fully independent and this is an unnecessary additional expense. The officer's report agrees that the appraisal is sufficient in itself, and it should be noted that there is no policy requirement for the figures to be independently verified. Comments from the ward member have stated that the price is too high and calculates the land has been marketed at £57,000 per acre. However, the site is not simply agricultural land, and this calculation does not appear to take into account the dwelling, associated agricultural buildings and menage, which have their own value. Additionally, the suggestion to sell at auction is not a requirement of policy H5. Therefore, it is contended that the marketing has been appropriate and demonstrates that there is a lack of interest. To conclude, the submitted agricultural appraisal, marketing efforts and valuation report clearly demonstrate that there is no need for the tie to remain at Longview House. Therefore, the committee is requested to approve this application in accordance with the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Oh, spot on. Well done. Thank you. Board member, Councillor Faithful.
Thank you, Chair. I do not consider the valuation given for Ware Farm is realistic and question the comparison, in particular with Three Oaks Farm in Ilchester. Three Oaks Farm includes a large 2-acre yard with redundant industrial type agricultural buildings available for rent, with excellent road access onto the A303. I would suggest that the yard is the greatest value asset at that site, a potential mini Greendale. Similar small holdings to Ware Farm, or whatever you call it now, in the local area around Ottery range from 575,000 to 1.85 million, with the higher end properties offering more land and better conditions. From the land registry, the largest payment for this property was for £640,000. I would argue that the lack of interest in the property demonstrates that it is not worth £1.2 million. For marketing, this property was marketed through Francis Louis Residential. As their title suggests, they are residential estate agents, not agricultural specialists. The property has been described as equestrian property rather than agricultural. This property has not been marketed through a specialist agricultural site at a price that an agricultural worker can afford. It has also not been offered for more general use as a social or affordable home, contrary to policy H5 of our present local plan. I do not consider offers in excess of 1.2 million to be offering the property to an agricultural worker. Under policy H5, a local plan is a viability assessment is not required where the conditions have been relaxed. A part-time agricultural worker can just as easily qualify to occupy the dwelling under an affordable housing condition. I also do not agree with the suggestion that farming would be for 1.3 days per week. Farming simply doesn't work like that. For example, during lambing, a farm worker needs to be around all the time, regardless of the number of ewes, due to the births taking place at all times of the day and night. It is not a 9-to-5 job, Monday to Friday. I would hope that all councillors will, with any experience of giving birth, would understand that situation. Also, the value of lambs are based on the lower price that they are likely to get. By selecting sheep that breed all year round, such as Dorset Horn, the higher price can be achieved. There are many ways to improve the viability of a small holding which are not suggested in the viability assessment. We have over recent times given permission for agricultural dwellings locally for properties of 19 acres, 16 acres, and in the process of giving permission on a 7-acre site, with our officers recommending the approval. All of these properties are smaller than the applicant's site. I sent out a copy of the decision made by South Hams District Council regarding a similar application for Fursdown in South Devon. This area is notorious for people buying up anything and everything at over-the-top prices. East Devon is not far behind. On this score, I urge this council to protect our essential workers and ensure that they have a realistic chance of accessing homes to work from. I've got time, have I? I just wanted to say that, what was I saying? Oh, God knows. Oh. For the above reasons, I cannot support this officer's recommendation to approve this application, and I ask you to refuse anyway.
Thank you. Do the officers have any comments in response to what's just been said? Nope.
Not that isn't already covered in the report.
Councillor Barlow, question?
Yes, a couple of things. First of all, who's selling it? Are they a farmer? Because I don't quite understand how a non-farmer, because he's not a farmer, bought it in the first place and yeah, he's going to run it as a farm. Then he thinks he can't run it as a farm, so now he's going to sell it off and he wants the restriction removed. And I'd like to ask a few questions about, because I was the one who put in the query regarding whether we should get a financial reward for removing an agricultural type. Basically, agricultural type means that 25 to 30% cheaper, usually, sometimes a bit more than that, than the going market conditions. As it's been pointed out by Councillor Faithful, this has been marketed by a residential estate agents in Exeter, used to selling farm buildings, on the other ones I saw on his thing, farm buildings that were basically barn conversions. So that's about as close as it's got to selling a farm in the previous. So I asked an agricultural agent, what's it worth? Is there a demand for it? Yes, lots of demand for it, but at the end of the day, it should be priced below 900,000, there or thereabouts, which makes it about right. 900,000 plus 25 to 30% gets to the 1.2 million. So that's what it's probably worth if you were to sell it as a domestic area. So my question is, you know, why, if, and again, sorry, on the H5 occupancy, if it isn't going to be used as an agricultural worker, it should be affordable housing, put out as affordable housing. Obviously, we can't do it as affordable housing. It's a big house, 1.2 million, doesn't make sense. No one could afford it there. So at that point, we're not building new houses. We know that we have a limit, that it's up to 9, down to 5 now apparently, but it used to be 9 houses, that at the end of the day, if you're building less than 9 houses, you don't have to provide affordable housing. Quite agree. But we've already allowed this. So we've allowed this in an area we would never allow a house to be built. And we've allowed it because the agricultural worker needs a, Mr. Hovis Brown, I think it was at the time, needed a house to run his farm. 300 acres it was at that stage, most of it rented. He sold it off, and now you're left, not him now, this is someone else that's bought this, got a house that should be an agricultural workers building. They are going to make 25 to 30% because we're going to remove that. My saying is that at the end of the day, that profit belongs to the affordable housing people, i.e. the people that need affordable housing, so that we can go and buy a sustainable house or a social house that we can actually allow someone to live in. That's what H5 says it's meant to do with it, because usually you don't have an agricultural house, whatever, agricultural workers dwelling, that is 4 bedrooms with an annex on top. The annex on top is for the worker, the other one was for the rich farm owner that had all of the farm with it. So why can't we put a 106, even if it is difficult to defend? This is something that will happen again in the future, exactly the same as removing the thing that it must be for hotel accommodation. It adds value to that property as soon as you remove these things. But you only allow it because there is a need for it. And if there was a need for it, there is still a need for it, but not for that because they've sold the land off. Otherwise, why wouldn't you just buy a farm, sell off all the land? Land's worth, so 20 acres worth about £300,000. So sell off the land, then the house that is left, according to them, is worth £900,000, but it's not as an agricultural workers dwelling. So therefore, to remove that, there should be a penalty to do that. And at the end of the day, we should be charging, you know, on this one, you know, 150 to 300,000 pounds should be going into a pot to allow affordable housing. That's what we did it for with H5. We're not saying to them, oh, you build it like we are with 9 or 10 dwellings where you have to do affordable housing. That would make more sense to me. So that was my question to you, really. Not really a question, but...
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with the sentiment that there's an uplifted value and therefore, you know, the policy should possibly tap into that. But I think for the reasons I tried to elaborate on, we simply don't think we've got the policy backing to be able to secure that contribution. The question was raised as regards the current owner, occupier, and made some inquiries, and the applicant is resident at the property and declares that he complies with the tie. on the basis that he keeps sheep and grazes horses. But that-
Just to come back on that, why are the pictures then of the house that for sale of an empty property? No beds, no furniture. Just a question, if he is a resident there, I just wonder if he's a meagre living there, or does he actually live up in Chard with his helicopters and all the rest of it?
That I don't know. That the information is what I've been given. Yeah.
Although, just to be clear, I should point out that the keeping of horses is not an agricultural use.
No.
So somebody who kept horses would not meet an agricultural worker's tie. Unless they were doing it for breeding or for, for food, for meat. But most equine use in this country is not deemed to be agricultural use.
But again, it doesn't need to be an agricultural worker as such. They could be retired, they could be a farm. So I was told by the agricultural agent, someone who would know, that most of these ones are done by farmers that are retiring because it's impossible to run a farm or giving it to their children, and they're then looking for somewhere with a few acres, a few horses, but they're retired, they're quite able to live there. I could live there as a horticulturist in my last job. I'm now retired. I could quite happily live there and I could apply for it. I can't obviously afford it at 1.2 million, but if it was, maybe I could.
So coming back a bit more on the point that you raised, which is obviously following up from, obviously you did make an inquiry as to this issue. So I agree with you that, and I think that was part of the sort of the assessment that this is a standalone policy. So I think we considered the requirements to consider whether this should be offered up as an affordable dwelling is different to the threshold policies, because the threshold policies relate to new housing provision. This is a separate policy specifically about rural workers. Now, but we do have to look at it in the context of the policy as it's written. And what the policy says is that where the conditions have met and there's a demonstrated housing need in the area as established through a local needs survey, as applied to the parish in which the dwelling is located. And so Mr. Barrett did investigate that to see whether there was in fact an up-to-date housing needs survey, and regrettably there isn't. Well, regrettably, factually, there isn't a housing needs survey. Therefore, that we would struggle to enforce that part of the policy. Furthermore, we don't have within that policy a requirement that where the house would be out of the, no longer financially viable or available, that we can then have that financial contribution. And I think the officer that was investigating this did find some appeals in other authorities, but where they had been successful in securing financial contributions because their policy specifically said that in certain circumstances a financial contribution could be sought. And our policy doesn't say that. So for that reason, I think we would be on very difficult grounds defending either the refusal to grant, because obviously a Section 106 is only entered into voluntarily. We can't impose a Section 106. So if the applicant chose not to enter into any 106 and then appealed against either a subsequent refusal or non-determination, I think we would be on very difficult grounds defending either the refusal or the sort of the non-determination appeal.
All right. Any more questions, members? Councillor Davey?
The current owner bought the property in 2021. Have we checked what price was paid for it then? I know it will have appreciated since then, but would that not give us a bit of a kind of baseline to assess this? I'm also a bit confused about the current size of the holding, because some of the sizes are given in acres, some are given in hectares, and I don't mind which it is, so long as both are given. And so it's a bit difficult to compare like with like when you see, well, this 5-bedroom house was, so I don't know how many bedrooms this has. I couldn't find anywhere in the report that said, but there was a 5-bedroom house sold with so many acres, I think it was, for nearly 1.4 million. And then there was another one that was in hectares, and also with a house, but also some other outbuildings. So these were supplied by Greenslades, I think. But I just wondered if they were really comparable. And the other question I had was, I've forgotten it now. Yeah, if it comes to me, I thought I'd written it down and I can't see it. So, yeah, if you can answer those 2 questions anyway. What was the other one?
Microphone.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we don't know the price at which the applicant bought the property and the holding in 2021. It does say in the report that the property is a 4-bedroom property with the added annex accommodation. The continual change in reference between metric and imperial, I think the report sources different documents at different stages, but just to hopefully provide some clarification. In imperial, it is between 21 and 22 acres, which equates to around 9 hectares.
If I could just add to that, just for transparency, and obviously sort of, I suppose it's picking up some issues similar to the application we just heard. So we've had a report in from a suitably qualified surveyor to do this property, the property assessment. Ordinarily, we would ask the applicant to cover the costs of us getting it verified. And in this case, the applicant didn't agree to that. So we haven't had it sent to a second person for that second opinion for effectively to give that sort of verification as to whether they agree with the comparables. So we've effectively, as officers, assessed the report given at face value.
Thank you. Councillor Barlow.
Why did we not get a second opinion? Sorry, just because they wouldn't pay for it. So at the end of the day, then we don't do it. So you get someone to do it, and then we don't. Why don't we just reject it at that point and say that we don't validate this account because you haven't done what we've asked you to do?
It happens later in the process. So from the validation point of view, they have to submit their report. And then normally as part of the assessment, we would then look at it, make a judgment as to whether or not we feel that it's something that does need to go out for that external review. And we did go back and ask for that, and because and the expectation is that is done at the cost of the applicant, and they refused to do so effectively. So we then had to make a judgment as to, well, do we think that this person was suitably qualified? Do we have evidence to suggest that we disagree? And so, as I say, we have made our assessment based, taking that report at face value.
I'm sorry, Chair, but is that standard? I mean, why do we ask? Otherwise, if we're just going to do it, you just look at it. Obviously, the person's got all the qualifications, but they are being employed by the person that wants it at 1.2 million. If we're reducing this price by £300,000, does that mean they're now going to auction this house or put this house up at 1.5 million? I doubt it, because it's not worth that. So therefore, someone is trying to pull the wool over this council's eyes as to the value of this house, in my opinion. We don't have another opinion to back that up.
Councillor Heath.
From what I've just read from my colleague, Councillor Brown, the market value of that property is about 800,000. So they're sticking it up by about 50% by the looks of it.
That's according.
Councillor Davey.
Yeah, I've found my other question now. Policy H5 states that records of all viewings and offers will be required, and the property should be regularly advertised in specialist agricultural publications, as well as local media and internet. And we've already heard it was marketed more through a firm more usually associated with residential development than with farm holdings. So are we satisfied that that part of the policy has been complied with?
There is an argument that, yeah, no, it hasn't necessarily ticked the letter of the policy. We've had to assess this in the round, as I mentioned in the presentation. I'm not going to deny that there is an argument that there may be a shortfall against the policy requirements, but again, in the round, taking each of the criteria individually and collectively, this is the position that officers have arrived at. Obviously, it is within your gift to take a different view based on your assessment of the robustness of the case that has been made. But again, all things considered, the officer view is that on balance, there are sufficient grounds for the lifting of the tie in this particular set of circumstances.
Thank you. Any more questions? We move into debate then. Councillor Barlow.
Chair, I suggest we do one of two things. Either defer this for enabling the applicant to agree to us to get a proper valuation of this property, or we refuse this application.
Is that a proposal, councillor?
No, that was two options, Chair,
All
for
right.
other people to discuss.
Any comments on that?
Well, yes, I mean, they are two options. I mean, I don't know whether the agent is able to say whether or not the applicant would be willing. He has previously declined to do so, but whether or not that may be reconsidered. Probably the best through you, Chair, as to whether you want to ask the agent whether he knows that the answer is a definite no, in which case I would suggest that you move to determination. And if it's that he may want to take his client's advice and we do defer it, but I think it might be worth putting it to the agent.
Okay. Can you come back, please, Mr. Whipps?
Yes, we discussed it in quite a bit of detail about getting, because Nigel requested it a few months ago. At the time, he was adamant that he didn't want to go ahead with it, but I could always speak to him and see if he's willing to do that. But I can't say for anything for certain beyond that.
Sorry?
Yes, he is in there. He is definitely there. Yeah, as far as I'm aware, he lives there. Yeah. You've been there to see him? I've not been there personally to see him, but he's told me that he lives there.
Yeah. Yeah. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, can I make a suggestion? There was a property that belonged to East Devon. The person wanted to sell, but they had it on the market for a price they said they couldn't sell it at. That was the valuation put on by the estate agent. East Devon said if you want to sell that property, because it was a tied property to East Devon, an ex-council property, they said you've got to go and get 3 valuations to make sure you've got the correct one.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Right, councillor Davy?
Well, looking through the comparison valuations and sale prices that have been provided by Greenslades, it seems to me the nearest one is Fursdon Hill Farm in Kingsbridge in terms of equivalence then. This is 22 acres, that was 27 acres. That had a 4-bedroom tied bungalow, also contained a modern agricultural building and the land, and that was sold for 930,000 and 500. That was in July 2022, and I appreciate there are other ones that sold for a higher value, but it seems to me most of those had far more in the way of extras with them than just a house and some land. So I do have serious concerns that this has been marketed as overvalued. It's been marketed in the wrong way. I mean, do we have any record of any offers being made? Would it have been in the gift of somebody, as you can in the property market, to make an offer lower than the asking price and see if they'll take it? Do we know what offers have been made, or if any offers have been made? Have we had that information in line with policy H5?
Just for information, Chair, agricultural prices have softened since 2022 by about 5%. I just looked it up, sorry. Same thing you just...
Thank you. Right, so we've...
If they're not willing to do that, then I'm very happy to say recommend refusal on the basis that it does not meet
Sorry?
our...
He said he was willing to go back to his client.
Whistling?
Mr. Webster said that he would go back to his client, so he could defer it.
Yeah. Would you be prepared to get the information that's been asked for, Mr. Webster?
Which information specifically?
So allow another valuation.
So we already put the question to the agent, and he said he was happy to speak. He's happy to speak to his
Yeah.
client to see if he is willing
Yeah.
to pay for the independent valuation.
Yeah.
If that was the decision of the members to defer it for that.
Yeah. Okay, so he is willing to speak to the client to get the valuation. Are you proposing deferral?
Could you turn off your
Turn your
microphone, please?
microphone off, please.
I'm happy to either defer or refuse. I don't think we've got the information. It doesn't comply with our H5 policy. And at the end of the day, I'm very happy to offer for refusal. However, I'll listen to other members if they want to give deferral another chance. Do we,
Bear in
just
mind,
a
we
question
risk-
there, just a
we-
question.
We risk the applicant going to appeal if we refuse. And by that time, an inspector, when he gets hold of it, might think you've had sufficient information.
What, if we defer?
And
or if-
uphold the, no, if we defer, it gives the applicant chance to go to appeal. But the agent says he's going to get the information you need from the applicant and bring it back to committee.
So what are you suggesting, Chair, that we defer it or
I
refuse it?
would
or
rather
wait?
see deferral than refusal.
Ben, I don't
As
want
he-
to upset...
We have his word that he's going to get the information you need.
Well, and that his client lives in the house in Ottery and, you know, that it's a realistic price, have been properly valued and marketed. But I'm very happy then to recommend, or, well, why don't you do it from the chair then?
No, it's yours. You're proposing deferral. Ollie seconding?
I'll second that, so long as there's no risk that we're going to run out of time and
Can
get an
you-
application for
can you-
non-determination.
Can you reassure the committee that in the meantime, there will not be an appeal lodged? Yeah, so there's no guarantee of it, but that you just got to have good faith here, if that's what you want to do. No.
So, sorry, if it's okay if I could come in. So effectively, what I'm understanding is there's a proposal to defer to enable the agent to ask his client one more time whether he would agree to pay for the council to appoint an independent consultant to review the viability report. And if the answer to that is no, this would then revert back to the next planning committee. If the answer is yes, then that work would be undertaken, and when it's completed, depending depending on what the recommendation is, if it remains for approval, obviously that would then come back to committee. There is a risk that the applicant could appeal for non-determination in the interim. However, if the members felt that they were likely to refuse this in any event, then the appeal would be forthcoming.
Yeah.
My preference would be if we are able to commission that work, we then have clear facts on which to make a determination. Rather than if it's refused, we obviously have less information. So I think I would say it's in everybody's interest. Potentially, obviously, if the report verifies everything, then members may decide that that is satisfactory and may choose to then approve the application in the future.
Is that okay with you, Ian?
Very happy, Chair.
Okay, and we've got a second. Can we take a vote on that, please? All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you.
Can I request a comfort break?
Comfort break, yes.
Yeah, can we take 5 minutes or 10 minutes, sir?
10 minutes.
Five then,
7.
back at 20 past. 21 minutes past.
Eileen, could you just turn your microphone
Oh. Planning application 26-10474, 7 Rowcroft Close, Honiton, page 362 to 370. I think this one's on because it's an employee, is it, of East Devon District Council. Right, 362. We have the agent, Mitchell Cooper.
Don't I need to present it first?
You have 3 minutes, Mr. Mitchell.
I don't think I'll be using the 3 minutes, to be fair.
Sorry.
It's been a long day. Yeah. Right, Wendy, sorry. Wendy, 362.
Thank you. So this is an application for two-storey side extension, a part two-storey and single-storey rear extension, porch and outbuilding, 7 Rowcroft Close in Honiton. And the reason this is at committee is that the applicant is a relative of an officer of the council, and there has been one objection to the application. This is the dwelling here, and so sat in residential street within the built-up area boundary. You can see here the application site. You can also see the building line that goes along and sort of steps back, I think that's number 1 here, stepping back a little bit. And these show the existing drawing. So it's a semi-detached property, and this is the front elevation, which has a single-storey flat-roofed addition at the side. This is the rear here, and then the 2 side elevations. And the proposal is to add a 2-storey extension on the side here. So it's removing that, well, effectively building over the single-storey addition on the side, building a pitched roof addition onto the side here. And then across the back, you've got a rear extension. So in the centre, it's 2-storey with a hipped roof. And then you've got 2 single-storey elements either side. You can see here and also you've got the addition of this porch. So you can see on the floor plans here, the porch, this is the ground floor of the 2-storey extension. This is the single-storey extension that goes right across the back. And then at first floor level, you've got an additional bedroom in here on the side, and a 2-storey element in the centre here. And this block plan here shows that the 2-storey extension, the extension of the back, are in line with the building line of the neighbour on this side here. Coming slightly forward of the building line of the neighbour here, but only at single-storey level on this part here. So this shows this is the back of the property. So this is the 2-storey extension going here, and then the extension going across the back. That's another view of the rear of the property. And this is looking at the nearest neighbour, which is over here. And this is at the front of the property. So the extension is going in here, and you're having the new, slightly larger porch at the front. 2-storey extension coming along here above this element. And that's another picture of the front. So effectively, it's development in the built-up area boundary, so the principle of the development is acceptable. The design of the extensions is in keeping in character with the building and within the street scene. The relationship with neighbours, because at the back, the 2-storey element is only in the centre, there's going to be no significant loss of light, There's no side-facing windows, so no overlooking issues arising. And no technical objections to the development. There's, I mean, effectively, there's impacts shown on there, but I don't think that necessarily negative impacts. It's going to be a slightly larger building within the street scene, but overall, no adverse impacts arising. And this is recommended for approval with conditions as set out in the report and as summarised on the slide in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Where are we now? Right, we have the agent, Mitchell Cooper.
Good afternoon,
Right.
all. I don't think I'll take the 3 minutes. I think Wendy's covered pretty much everything there. It's just an extension that goes on all over Honiton, and it's only here due to the relationship with Nigel. It's just a growing family, modernising the house, and I've only come along if you've got any queries or questions, so fire away if you do. If not, hopefully you can improve. Thank you.
And you sat through all of that just to say that. Okay. Right, ward member, Councillor Roy Collins.
My speaker's not working, but I'm not worried.
As long as your brain is.
The trouble is, Roy, that the public can't hear you if you don't use the mic. No.
They might not want to.
Right, thank you. These used to be former army officers' houses in Rowcroft Close. As you can see, they're very high standard houses. I did pop in there this morning and I was so impressed with their gardens. Every house had the beautiful gardens and the flowers were all in full bloom. I can see no reason to object to this application as long as it doesn't overlook the properties in Jocelyn Road. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any questions, members? No question, yeah, Ollie?
Two things. Presumably there's no loss of light through the increase in height of the existing garage, and it does involve the loss of a garage. Is there any kind of compensation for that? Because garages, in my experience, rarely have a car in them, but often function as very useful storage space. It looks as though they're going to lose that. Is there any kind of replacement for that proposed?
There is no garage. I might have erroneously said it was a garage, but it isn't. It's just a single-storey extension at the side.
Oh, right. Oh, okay.
Okay, any more questions? No, can we?
Recommend support.
Second? Vote, please. That's that then. Oh, were they all like that?
Unanimous.
Right, item 12, planning application 260812, Full Strand Gardens, the Strand Exmouth, page 263275. Jill's not doing it, you're doing it, yeah?
Jill is doing it.
Is Jill here?
She's just coming through.
All right.
Sorry.
If we get this done, you get free brownies on Friday.
Right, Go ahead, Jill.
Thank you, Chair. So this application is before Planning Committee as the
The other side.
Thank you. This application is before Planning Committee as East Devon District Council are the applicant and the landholder, and a noise and nuisance concern has been raised by a member of the public. So you can see the application site here. This is Strand Gardens in the centre of Exmouth. This is a pedestrianised public space within the town. There are three application sites here outlined in orange. So the application seeks approval for temporary seating on these grassed areas in association with the existing commercial and business premises. So the area is characterised by commercial and business premises with residential accommodation above. There's a thriving cafe and bar culture, and there is already some outdoor seating within this area. The site is within a town centre shopping area as defined by the local plan, and is within a conservation area. And there are also a number of significant trees on the site, as you can see in the aerial photo below. So that's an image looking at one of the areas there proposed for seating, is this grass area here, and then another one is here next to these two trees. So the 4 parcels of land total approximately 560 square metres, and temporary approval for the siting of seating is sought from the 1st of April until the 30th of September, until 2028. The times will be controlled through the existing licensing, which is Monday to Friday between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m, Saturday 7 a.m. till 11 p.m, and Sundays and bank holidays 8 a.m. till 10 p.m. There are 3 previous temporary approvals on the site, which was originally allowed to provide establishments the opportunity to extend their business operation following the pandemic. In terms of the principle of development, policy E9, town centre vitality and shopping areas, encourages uses which contribute to the diversity and vitality of town centres, which this proposal would. The area as well has been well used in the past. In response to noise concerns raised, there are already a number of cafes and bars within this area. The hours are controlled through the licensing, and in terms of the, it's envisaged that this would provide sufficient control if there were any noise complaints raised, in addition to the controls on any planning approval. Therefore, it's considered that there is adequate control in respect of noise impacts on the application. In terms of the impact on the conservation area, the proposal would enhance the vibrancy of the conservation area and support the viability of businesses around the Strand Gardens, which would accord with policy EN10. The application is supported by an arboricultural survey. There's a number of significant trees on the plan, as you'll see down here, particularly these in areas 1 and 2. There's an existing lime tree, a London plane, and a horse chestnut. EDDC's arboriculturalist has raised concerns about the condition of the grass due to compaction. So you can see this is a Google Street View photo taken before the area was used for seating. And another more recent photo, obviously taken at a different time of year, but you can see the impact that the seating has had on the grass. And as such, the tree officer has recommended that any approval be conditional upon soil improvements initially to aerate the ground prior to the start of this season, and then at the end of each September season to improve the soil quality at the end of each seating season. With the appropriate conditions in place, the proposal would comply with policy D3. So in terms of the impacts of the proposal, there are potential noise impacts, but it's envisaged these could be controlled via planning conditions and via the existing licence. There are also potential tree impacts as noted, but these could also be resolved by condition. In terms of the positive impacts of the proposal, it's compliant with local plan policy E9. The proposal would contribute to the local economy, and the scheme would enhance the conservation area by increasing the vibrancy of the area. As such, the recommendation is approval. So the temporary approval would run from the 1st of April to the 30th of September until September 2028. Initially, the second condition was proposed as a pre-commencement condition. However, the seating has already been placed on site, and as such, that would be amended to a condition to state that within 4 weeks of any approval, works to improve the aeration of the soil would be carried out. And then further detail of mitigation measures would be required within 2 months for mitigation to take place at the end of each season in October. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Now, Ollie and I are the ward members for this one. Would you like to speak on it, Ollie?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with noise issues or anything like that. The area is well used. It helps to extend the area for a couple of local pubs. It's mainly used for pubs. It all adds to the kind of outdoor area of the Strand. And my only concern was with the impact on the trees. We lost a lot when that area was redeveloped, and we don't want to lose any more. Presumably, it's East Devon District Council as the applicant who have to carry out these works. So we are paying for that. Presumably that can be offset by the rent that we derive from the lease of the land to the actual users. So yeah, so long as that is carried out, I don't have any issues with it.
Yeah, and I'd like to see this regularised as well. We have had problems in the past, but the whole area, when it was designed, was intended to be by the then Director of Environment at Devon County Council, because I was a county councillor at that time. It was designated to be a cafe quarter, and his ambition was for it to be recognised internationally as such. But then he's involved with Exeter City Football Club. So anyway, any questions, members? Stephen, Ian, go first.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. This application is a temporary one, and I understand that this one sort of comes round and round and round. Why is it only a temporary one? Why don't we just do this in perpetuity with the conditions that the ward members are suggesting?
Well, there might be a change of operator there. We don't want to.
But then you don't give them a licence. Yeah.
It's been abused. It's just in the public. It's been abused.
It's my understanding that it's partly as a means of giving the council more control in terms of the noise, any noise impacts and things like that. That it could be taken away at the end of the 3-year period if it was so desired.
Like I said, there have been problems in the past. Yeah, Councillor Barlow.
Oh, well, that doesn't make sense because it's East Devon that leases it to the people anyway. They just stop the lease at the end of the day. And also it relies on a licence, I believe, that if you sit on the licensing thing. All I was going to ask, other than that question, is were the police asked, and did the police have any complaints about noise or problems there? Because otherwise, obviously, that'll come up in licensing anyway, won't you?
I don't believe the police were consulted on the application.
Ollie.
Yeah, any issues like that would be dealt with by licensing. I think that part of the reason that it's temporary is because it may be involved in the wider redevelopment of certain areas of the town as part of the placemaking plan.
Yeah.
So I think there's always a little bit of kind of keeping our options open and not kind of putting things in place that could then stymie what the placemaking plan might seek to achieve. But as far as I'm concerned, it's very unlikely to be changed because it's very successful as it is.
Yeah, and I think the similar principle was applied to the wheel on the seafront, the big wheel, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay. Any more questions, members? All right. Debate then?
Approve, subject to an agreement.
Thank you. Seconder? Yeah, lots of seconders. Colin, you can have that one. Got to share it out. We take a vote, please. Unanimous. Thank you, everybody, for sitting through today. And see you all again on Friday, I hope.